Okay, so the last chapter was honestly pretty fucking long, and this is kind of hard to recap, really, because, like, kind of a lot went on in it. But okay, everyone was at Finoglio's house. Basically, Mo and his daughter, Maggie, they were at Finoglio's house. Eleanor was still at her house. She was, she had just found out that all her books had been burned and shit, you know. All that horrible stuff happened. Something. Pippo, Finoglio's grandchildren, he had just told Basta and the other bad guys, like, everything, basically, like, everything and anything they needed to know, I guess. And Basta had just turned up at Finoglio's house, and, like, Finoglio was flipping out because he's meeting one of his book characters, and he's a bad guy, and, like, he's, like, terrified of him. So we've got Dustfinger, Mo, Meggie, Eleanor, Finoglio. Those are all the good guys. The children are Pippo, I think. Who are the other names? I don't remember the other names of the children, but they'll come up. They're not, like, super important characters yet anyways, but there's, like, 3 grandchildren, and Maggie and Mo, and Eleanor. All the bad guys are Basta, Flatnose, I forget all their names too. Flatnose, Basta, I don't know. Those are the main guys. There's someone else I'm forgetting that's, like, kind of important, but so okay. The last page or so is Basta was, like, threatening to kill him. Finoglio told Paula and everybody to go home. Those are, like, some of the other grandchildren, I guess. And Basta was threatening to kill Finoglio, but Finoglio is, like, his writer, his author, the person who created him, so he's like, oh, you can't kill me or you'll die. Well, Maggie said that, like, which isn't true, but she said it to save him. She's like, oh, if you kill him, then you'll kill yourself because he invented you. Whatever. And yeah. So Basta is now taking them back to Capricorn's village, I think, as, like, the last thing that happens. Maggie had just found a little cat, and they said that the cat had to stay. Okay. Maggie asked if she could take some clothes. Flatnose just grunted. Finoglio looked unhappily, blah, blah, blah. I could do with a change of clothes myself, too, he said. No one took any notice. Basta was busy with his message, carefully with the tip of his tongue between his teeth. He was gouging his name into the wood of a dresser with his knife. Basta. Mo would understand that only too well, because Mo was gone, I guess, so they're leaving without him. Okay. Maggie hastily stuffed a few things in her backpack. She kept on Mo's sweater. She was about to put Eleanor's 2 books in with the clothes, but Basta knocked them out of her hand. Those stay here, he said. Mo did not return in time to meet them as they walked to Basta's car. All that long, endless way, he didn't appear. Okay, so I guess Basta and Flatnose showed up to Finoglio's, and now they're stealing Finoglio and Maggie and taking them back to Capricorn's village. There's our recap. That's where we're at. Okay, we're on chapter 31, page 307, In the Hills. This little excerpt, foreshadowing thing, is from The Sword and the Stone. "Let him alone," said Merlin. "Perhaps he does not want to be friends with you until he knows what you are like. With owls, it is never easy come and easy go." Okay. Dustfinger looked across to Capricorn's village. It seemed close enough to touch. Some of the windows reflected the sky, and one of the black jackets was repairing a couple of broken tiles on a roof. Dustfinger saw him wipe the sweat from his brow. The fools never took off their jackets even in this heat, as if they were afraid of falling apart without the black uniform. Not that crows take off their feathers in the sun either, and these men were just a flock of crows. Robbers, carrion eaters who like to plunge their sharp beaks into dead flesh. The boy had been uneasy when he saw how close Dustfinger's chosen hiding place was to the village, but Dustfinger had explained why there couldn't be anywhere safer to lie among the surrounding hills. The charred walls were hardly visible, camouflaged as they were by the spurge, brambles, and wild thyme that had taken root among the soot-blackened stones. Capricorn's men had set fire to the house soon after taking over the deserted village. The old woman who had lived there had refused to leave, but Capricorn wouldn't tolerate prying eyes so close to his new hideout and gave his followers free rein. His crows, his black vultures, had set fire to the homemade chicken run and the run-room cottage. They had trampled over the carefully tended beds in the garden and shot the donkey that was almost as old as its mistress. They came under cover of darkness as usual, and the moon, so one of Capricorn's maidservants had told Dustfinger, shone particularly bright that night. The old woman had tottered out of the house, weeping and screaming. Then she'd cursed them. She cursed them all. But her eyes were turned on only one of them, Basta, who was standing a little way from the others because he feared the fire, his shirt very white in the moonlight. Perhaps she had thought that shirt might conceal something like innocence or a kind heart. At Basta's orders, Flatnose had put his hand over her mouth to shut her up, but the others had laughed, until unexpectedly she fell down dead and lay there lifeless among her trampled garden beds. Ever since that day, Basta had feared this place more than anywhere else in the hills. No, there could be nowhere better to keep watch on Capricorn's village. Dustfinger spent most of the time perched on one of the oaks that had once given the old woman a shady place to sit outside her cottage. Its branches hid him from the curious eyes of anyone who might stray up the hillside. He perched there motionless for an hour upon hour, watching the parking lot and the houses through his binoculars. He had told Farrod to stay farther away in the hollow behind the houses. The boy had reluctantly obeyed. He was sticking close to Dustfinger, close as a burr, and he didn't like the gutted cottage. I keep trying to say college, instead of cottage. You guys are so dark. There's really nothing I can do about it, though. Her ghost is still here for sure, he kept saying. That old woman's ghost. Suppose she was a witch. But Dustfinger had just laughed at him. There were no ghosts in this world, or if there were, they never showed themselves. The hollow was so well sheltered that he had even risked lighting a fire the previous night. The boy had snared a rabbit. He was good at setting traps and more ruthless than Dustfinger. When Dustfinger caught a rabbit, he didn't take it out of the trap until he was quite sure the poor thing had stopped wriggling. Farrod had no such scruples. Perhaps he had gone hungry too often. Above all, he loved to watch with wonder and admiration whenever Dustfinger took a few little sticks and lit a fire. The boy had already burnt his fingers playing games with matches. The flames had bitten his nose and his lips, yet Dustfinger kept finding him making torches of cotton and wool and thin twigs. Once he set light to the dry grass, and Dustfinger grabbed him and shook him like a disobedient dog until tears came into his eyes. "Listen hard, because I'm not telling you again. Fire is a dangerous creature," he had shouted at Farrod. "Fire is not your friend. It will kill you if you don't respect it, and its smoke will give you away to your enemies." "But it's your friend," the boy had stammered defiantly. "Nonsense. I'm not careless, that's all. I take note of the wind. You let it play with the fire. I've told you 100 times. Never light a fire when it's windy. Now go and look for Gwen." "It is your friend, though," the boy had muttered before running off. "Or anyway, it obeys you better than the marten does." He was right there, though that didn't mean much. For a marten only obeys itself. And even fire didn't obey Dustfinger in this world as it did in his own. Where the flames turned to flower shapes whenever he told them to, they had forked up in the air for him like trees branching in the night, and rained down sparks. They had roared and whispered with their crackling voices, they had danced when he said the word. The flames were both tame and mutinous, strange, silent beasts that sometimes bit the hand that fed them. Only occasionally, on cold nights, when there was nothing but the flames to stave off his loneliness, did he think he heard them calling to him. But they whispered words he didn't understand. However, the boy was probably right. Yes, the fire was his friend, but it was also the only reason why Capricorn had summoned him back in that other life. "Show me how to play with fire," he had said when his men dragged Dustfinger before him, and Dustfinger had obeyed. He still regretted teaching him so much, for Capricorn loved to give fire free rein, catching it again only when it had eaten its fill of crops and stables, houses, and anything that couldn't run fast enough. As he stole away, Farid was leaning against the rough bark of the tree. The boy was as quiet as a snake. Dustfinger always jumped when he appeared so quietly, or so suddenly. Oops. "Yes," he said, "luck's on our side." On the day they came to this hideout, Capricorn's car had been standing in the parking area. But that afternoon, two of the boys had begun polishing its silver paintwork until they could see their reflections in it, and shortly before it was dark, he had driven off. Capricorn often had himself driven around the countryside, to the villages farther down the coast, or to one of his other bases, as he liked to call them, although these so-called bases were often little more than a hut in the woods, with a couple of bored men guarding it. Like Dustfinger, he couldn't drive a car, but some of his men had mastered the art of it. Hardly any of them held a driver's license, though, because to pass the test, they would have to be able to read. "Yes, I'll go over there again tonight," murmured Dustfinger. "He won't be away much longer, and Basta is sure to be back soon, too." Basta's car had not been in the lot at all since they'd come here. I have hiccups again. Okay, Basta's car had not been in the lot at all since they'd come here. It was unusual for it to be gone for so long, because Basta didn't like to be away from the village for any length of time. Were he and Flatnose still lying in the ruined cottage, bound and gagged? "Good, when do we start?" Farid sounded as if he wanted to get moving at once. "After sunset, they'll all be in the church eating then." Dustfinger shooed a flyaway with his binoculars. "I'm going alone. You're to stay here and keep an eye on our things." "No." "Yes, this will be dangerous. There's someone I want to visit, and to do that I have to get into the yard behind Capricorn's house." The boy gazed at him with eyes full of astonishment, eyes that sometimes looked as if they had seen too much already. "Surprised, are you?" Dustfinger suppressed a smile. "You wouldn't have thought I had any friends in Capricorn's house." The boy shrugged his shoulders and looked over to the village. A vehicle was driving into the parking lot, a dusty truck with two goats tethered on the open loading platform. "Look at that, another farmer's lost his goats," muttered Dustfinger. "Wise of him to give them up freely, or there'd have been a note pinned to his stable door this evening." Farid looked at him, an unspoken question in his eyes. "The red rooster crows tomorrow," that's what the note would say. It's the only thing Capricorn's men knew how to write, but sometimes they just hang a dead rooster above the door instead. Anyone can understand that. "Red rooster," the boy shook his head. "Is it a curse or something?" "No, good heavens, you sound like Basta." Dustfinger laughed quietly. Capricorn's men were getting out of the truck. The smaller of them was carrying 2 plastic bags filled to bursting. The other was hauling goats off the loading platform. The red rooster means fire. The fire they'll light in the farmers' outhouses or olive groves, and sometimes the rooster crows in the attic of the house, or if a farmer in his children's bedroom. Us all have something we love dearly. Leading the goats into the village, Dustfinger knew by his limp that one of them was Cockerel. He had often wondered whether Capricorn knew about all the little deals his men did, or whether they were working for themselves on the side now and then. Bro, this is kind of wild. So like 8 leaves almost hit me. There's a bunch in the water now. Are you done? Can I continue? Yeah, I think my turtle's really a rock over there because it hasn't ever moved. You guys good there? Damn, there's a bunch of leaves. They're all just going. It's not time. It's not time for this. I'm not ready for fall or for winter. I forget where it was. We almost all have something we love dearly. I think that's where I was. Oh, it's coming again. You guys gonna fall again? Need a more stable platform. Oh, y'all are kind of short, actually. I could move y'all up more. Stay. Maybe that makes y'all less stable, though. Don't ask me, I'm not a fucking professional. You're crooked now, though, I know that. Okay. We can go inside if I want. I'm aware. The men were leading the goats into the village. Dustfinger knew by his limp that one of them was Cockerel. He had often wondered whether Capricorn knew about all the little deals his men did, or whether they were working for themselves on the side now and then. That's where y'all fell last time. Nature's trying to fucking finish us off early, guys. Ferret caught a grasshopper in the hollow of his hand and watched it through his fingers. I'm going with you all the same, he said. No, I'm not afraid. That makes it worse. Capricorn had floodlights installed after the escape of his captives outside the church, on the roof of his house, and in the parking area. They didn't exactly make it easier to walk the streets unobserved. The first night after their arrival here, Dustfinger had stolen into the village, his scarred face blackened with soot because it was too easily recognizable. Capricorn had also reinforced the guards on sentry duty, probably because all of the treasure Silvertongue had brought him. By now, of course, that treasure had disappeared into the cellar of his house and was carefully locked away in the heavy safes that Capricorn had fitted there. He didn't care to spend money. Like the dragons of legend, he hoarded it. Sometimes he placed a ring on his finger or put a necklace around the neck of a maid who happened to take his fancy. Who are you going to meet? None of your business. The boy let the grasshopper go again. It hopped rapidly away on its spindly olive green legs. Oh, a woman, said Dustfinger, one of Capricorn's maids. She's helped me a couple of times before. The one in the photo in your backpack. Dustfinger lowered his binoculars. How do you know it's in my backpack? The boy hunched his head down between his shoulders, like someone used to being beaten for every thoughtless remark. I was looking for matches. If I catch you with your fingers in my pack again, I'll tell Gwen to bite them off. The boy grinned. Gwen never bites me. He was right. The marten was crazy about Ferret. Where is that faithless animal now, anyway? Dustfinger peered through the branches. I haven't seen him since yesterday. I think he's found a female. Ferret picked up a stick and poked at the dead leaves that lay everywhere under the trees. By night, the rustling leaves would give away anyone trying to steal up to their camp in silence. If you don't take me with you tonight, said the boy without looking at Dustfinger, I'll just follow you anyway. If you follow me, I will beat you black and blue. Ferret lowered his head scrutably at his bare toes. Then he glanced at the ruined walls where they had made their camp. And don't start on about how the old woman's a ghost again, said Dustfinger crossly. How often do I have to tell you? All of the danger is over in those houses. Light a fire in the hollow if you're afraid of the dark. Ghosts don't fear fire. The boy's voice was hardly more than a whisper. Sighing, Dustfinger clambered down from his lookout post. The boy was almost as bad as Basta. He wasn't afraid of curses, ladders, or black cats, but he saw ghosts everywhere. And not just the ghosts of the old woman now sleeping buried somewhere in the hard ground. Farad saw other ghosts, and spirits too, whole armies of them, malignant, all-powerful beings who tore the hearts out of poor mortal boys and ate them. He refused to believe it when Dustfinger told him that they hadn't come with him. He had left them behind in a book, along with the thieves who used to beat and kick him. He might well die of fear if he stayed here all alone all night. Oh, very well then, you better come, said Dustfinger, but not a squeak out of you, do you understand? The men down there aren't ghosts, they're real people, and they have knives and guns. Gratefully, Farad flung his thin arms around him. Yes, all right, that'll do, said Dustfinger, pushing him away. Come on, let's see if you can stand on one hand yet. The boy immediately obeyed. Bright red in the face, he balanced first on his right hand and then on his left, bare legs up in the air. After 3 wobbly seconds, he landed in the prickly leaves of a rock rose, but he promptly got up, pulled a few thorns out of his foot, and tried again. I don't know if I'm tripping, like I'm pink or what, but like there's no way I could be pink. I'm not in the sun at all. Like if I get sunburned under a tree, I'm about to freak out. Cause how? No, I'm good. I'm tripping. Pulled a few thorns out of his foot and tried again. Dustfinger sat down on under a tree. It was high time to get rid of the boy, but how? You could throw stones at a dog, but a boy? Why hadn't he stayed with Silvertongue, who knew more about looking after young people? And it was Silvertongue, after all, who had brought him here. But no, the boy had to run after him, Dustfinger. I'm going to look for Gwen, said Dustfinger, getting to his feet. Without a word, Farad trotted after him. Get the fuck off me! Hair, man. Hair is obnoxious. I only read 1 chapter, but I'm over fucking wind right now. Wilma is nature. My smoothie's gone. Like, half of this is supposed to be behind me. Whatever. It's gonna look like shit when I get in the house and I have to pull it all back though. That's the problem. What is this? What was it? Where'd it go? Bro! Why you didn't tell me I had a bug on my forehead? How long that little fucker been hitching a ride there? And I murdered him. How long has that shit been there? What the fuck? There was a whole bug and I killed him. Hey, you're a bug, right? Yeah, it was. It was a bug. Okay, here's my chat. That's crazy. It's been chilling on my face for I don't know how long. Kind of hard to tell when something lands on your head whenever you've constantly got your hair flying around it, though. I want to keep reading. The wind is very obnoxious, though. What? Since when? We have to eat bugs now? God, Wilma. I mean, that's obviously like all the science that I need. I'm sitting right against the wind. Like, I'm gonna regret this in like 2 seconds. My hair's getting kind of long. I cut it like once a month. I don't really give it a chance to grow out. Okay, how long is this chapter? Not long at all. I could read this one. It's pretty accurate though. This page is not long. I think it's gonna be from oh no, it's not from Eleanor's point of view. This is still from Maggie's. Or I guess the last one was from Dustfinger. This one's from Maggie's. Next one's from Dustfinger. This one's from Maggie. Okay, so we're gonna be flipping back and forth through point of views for like a minute because we'll like Mo separate from Eleanor and Eleanor separate from everybody and Finoglio separate and Maggie separate, and like they're all separated from each other right now. So they're all fucking gonna be switching point of views to give us everybody's stories. So y'all just gonna have to keep up, I guess, for a while. Your messages are kind of all over the place. Where are you getting children are lame from? I don't know how to sit, but this is just, it's really irritating. I can't read with hair in my fucking mouth. Straight this way. I need y'all to be over here. Irritating. Everything's irritating. Okay. Chapter 32. Back again. This foreshadowing is from The Secret of Platform 13 by Eva Ibbotson? Or Eva? I don't know. She spoke to the king, hoping he would forbid his son to go, but he said, "Well, dear, it's true that adventures are for good people. It's true that adventures are good for people, even when they are very young. Adventures can get into a person's blood, even if he doesn't remember having them." Okay. Okay. Capricorn's village didn't look like a dangerous place on the gray, rainy day when Maggie set eyes on it again. The houses standing among the green hills were a miserable sight with not a ray of sunlight to brighten their ruins. Maggie could hardly believe these same houses had looked so menacing on the night of their escape. "Interesting," whispered Finoglio as Basta drove into the parking lot. "Do you know this village is very like one of the settings I thought for Inkheart? Well, there's no fortress, but the landscape around is similar, and the age of the village would be about right. Did you know that Inkheart is set in a world not unlike our own medieval times? Of course, I added some things, the fairies and the giants." Maggie wasn't really listening to them now. She remembered how, after their flight from the sheds where Capricorn had held them captive, she had stumbled toward Eleanor's car and the man had shot at them. She had hoped she would never again have to see this parking lot, the church, and the hills. "Come on, get moving," grunted Flatnose, opening the car door. "I expect you to remember the way." Oh yes, Maggie could remember, even though it did all rather seem different today. Finoglio looked around the gloomy alleys like a tourist, staring at windows and open doors as if he'd paid for entry. "I know this village," he whispered to Maggie. "I mean, I've heard of it. There's more than one sad story about the place. The earthquake in the last century, and the last war there was. Save your tongue for later, scribbler, Basta interrupted. I don't like whispering. Finoglio shot him an angry glance, but fell silent and did not utter another sound until they had reached the church. Well, go on, open the door. What are you waiting for? Growled Flatnose. With Finoglio's help, Maggie opened the heavy wooden door. The met them smelled as musty as on the day she had entered the church with Mo and Eleanor. Nothing much had changed inside. The red walls looked even more threatening on the overcast day, and the expression on the doll-like face of Capricorn's statue seemed even more malevolent than before, if that were possible. The fires in which the books had been burned still stood in the same place, but there was no sign of Capricorn's chair at the top of the steps. 2 of his men were just carrying a new chair up them. The old woman who looked like a magpie and who Maggie didn't really like to remember was standing beside them, impatiently giving directions. Basta pushed aside 2 men who were kneeling in the middle of the nave, cleaning the floor, and strode toward the altar steps. Where's Capricorn, Mortola? He called to the old woman as he approached. I have news for him, important news. The old woman didn't even turn toward him. Further to the right, you fools, she ordered the 2 men who were still struggling with the heavy armchair. Yes, that'll do. Then she turned toward Basta, her face expressionless. What do you mean? Basta had We expected you back before this, she said. What do you mean? Basta had raised his voice, but Maggie caught the uncertainty in it revealed. It sounded almost as if he were afraid of the old woman. Do you know how many villages were down this damn coast, and we weren't even sure whether Silvertongue was still in the area. But I can rely on my nose, and as you see, he said nothing in Maggie's direction. I've done the job. You have. The magpie looked past Basta to where Maggie and Finoglio were standing with Flatnose. All I see is the girl and an old man. Where's her father? He wasn't there, but he'll come after her. The girl's the best bait we could have. And how will he know she's here? What is that noise? The girl's the best bait we could have. And how will he know she's here? I left him a message. Since when can you write? Maggie saw Basta's shoulders tense with anger. I left him my name. He won't need more than that to know where to find his precious little daughter. Tell Capricorn I'm shutting her in one of the cages. Ow! Someone whacked me in the back. That's fucking rude. With these words, he turned on his heel and stalked back to Maggie and Finoglio. Capricorn's not here, and I don't know when he'll be back, Mortola called after him. But I'm in charge until then, and in my view, you haven't been doing your job recently as well as we expect. Basta swung around as if he had been bitten in the back of the neck, but Mortola continued unmoved. First you let Dustfinger steal a set of keys from you, then you lose our dogs, and we have to send a search party out into the mountains for you, and now this. Give me your keys. The magpie put out her hand. What? Basta went white, like a boy being punished in front of the whole class. You heard. I'm going to look after them. The keys to the cages, the crypt, and the fuel store. Bring them here. Basta didn't move. You've no right to them, he snapped. Capricorn gave them to me, and he's the only one who can take them away. He turned around once more. And so he will, Mortola called after him, and he'll expect your report as soon as he gets back. Maybe he'll understand better than I do why you didn't bring Silvertongue. Basta did not reply. Seizing Maggie and Finoglio by the arms, he hauled them toward the church door. Mortola, the magpie, called something after him, but couldn't make out what it was. And Basta did not turn back this time. He locked her and Finoglio in the shed marked number 5, the one where Ferret had been imprisoned. Okay, you can wait here till your father arrives, he said before pushing Maggie inside. She felt as if this were a nightmare, that she was dreaming it all over again. Only here there wasn't even musty straw to sit on, and the light bulb hanging from the ceiling didn't work. Although a little daylight did come in through a narrow hole in the wall. Oh, wonderful, said Finoglio, sitting down on the cold floor with a sigh. A cowshed, how unimaginative. I really could have expected Capricorn to at least have a proper dungeon for his prisoners. Cowshed. Maggie leaned her back against the wall. She heard the rain pattering against the locked door. Well, yes, what did you think it was? They always built houses like this in the old days. room for the livestock on the ground floor, and living quarters for the family above them. They still keep their goats and donkeys like that in many mountain villages. Haven't you noticed when they've driven the animals out to the pasture in the morning that there are steaming heaps of dung left lying in the streets, and you tread in them when you go to buy your breakfast rolls? Finoglio plucked a hair from one nostril, looked at it as if he couldn't believe anything quite so bristly grew in his nose, and flicked it away. This is really rather uncanny, he murmured. That's exactly how I imagined Capricorn's mother. That nose, the eyes set so close together, even the way she folds her arms and her chin juts forward. Maggie looked at him incredulously. Capricorn's mother? The magpie? Magpie, is that what you call her? Finoglio laughed softly. She has exactly the same nickname in my story. How amazing. Be careful of her. She's not a very pleasant character. I thought she was his housekeeper. That's probably what you're supposed to think. So keep our little secret to yourself for now, all right? Maggie agreed, although she didn't really understand. What did it matter who the old woman was? It all came to the same thing. This time there was no dust finger to open the door in the night. It had all been for nothing, as if they had never run away at all. She went over to the locked door, pressed her hand against it. He'll come, she whispered. Mo will come, and then they'll lock us up in here forever and ever. Finoglio got up and went over to her. There, he said, putting his arms around her and letting her bury her face in his jacket. It was made of rough fabric and smelled of pipe tobacco. I'll think of something, he whispered to Maggie. After all, I invented these villains. It'll be an odd thing if I can't get rid of them. Your father had an idea, but... Maggie raised her face, wet with tears, and looked at him hopefully, but the old man shook his head. Later, now tell me what makes Capricorn so interested in your father. Is it something to do with the way he reads aloud? Maggie nodded and wiped the tears from her eyes. He wants Mo to read aloud to him here, to bring out an old friend from a book. Finoglio gave her a handkerchief. A few crumbs of tobacco fell from it when she blew her nose. A friend? Capricorn has no friends. The old man frowned. Then Maggie felt him suddenly take a deep breath. Who is it? She asked, but Finoglio just mopped a tear off her cheek. Someone I hope you'll never meet, except between the covers of a book, he said evasively. Then he turned and began pacing up and down. Capricorn will be back soon, he added. I must think how best to confront him. But Capricorn did not come. Darkness fell outside, and still no one had fetched them from their prison. They weren't even brought anything to eat. It grew cold when the night air came in through the hole in the wall, and they huddled side by side on the hard floor to keep warm. Is Bostis still very superstitious? Finoglio asked at some point. Yes, very, replied Maggie. Dustfinger likes taunting him about it. Good, murmured Finoglio, but he would say no more. Okay, I'm probably done reading. I only read 2 chapters, but my hair is getting annoying. This wind is getting annoying. I can't keep the pages down. I'm not having it.